各位贵宾，我们下一个场次即将要正式开始了，请您准备就座，谢谢。Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to begin our next session. Please take your seats. Thank you very much.
讲者吗？讲者还没回座哦，谢谢。
贵宾，请您就座，我们准备要进行下一个场次了，谢谢。Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We're about to begin our next session. Thank you very much. 那前面有位置的话呢，也欢迎各位贵宾可以移到前面来坐，谢谢。And you're welcome to sit in the front rows. Thank you very much. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, and for this next talk, it's all about trash. Okay, trash could be treasure. Trash could be sexy, and trash could be turned into a lot of things you can never think of. Okay. 那接下来呢，我们下一个主题叫做是垃圾的性感哦。我们非常开心为各位邀请到的是小智研发黄千智创办人上台来跟我们分享。Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our speaker, Mr. Arthur Huang, founder of Miniwits.
I see a lot beyond. 因为我们叫做公司的 logo 一直都是 Zero Waste and Beyond， 就是除了垃圾以外，应该可以做更多事情。那刚刚有讲到，也许 make it more sexy, make it upcycle. So I just want to first show you what we do in 2 minutes, quickly, so I don't have to re-explain what we do again. Okay.
We want to matter. We want to matter to the non-toxic future of our world. We want to matter to the sustainability of our community. At Miniwits, it is our mission to change consumer behavior into a circular one. It is the only way for us as a species to sustainably consume our limited resources. Overconsumption is a complex system problem. There is no single miracle cure. We want to matter by proving human consumption can be satiated with our very own trash. We have dedicated ourselves to turning decades of environmental pollution into solutions that will enable us to live sustainably. We want to matter, so we turn ourselves into magicians of trash, inventing new ways of transforming our everyday trash into high-performance works of art. We turn milk packaging into the hottest sportswear fashion, plastic bottles into luxurious textile, cigarette butts into furnitures and glasses. We want to matter, so we infiltrate the cities where the desire for luxury is cultivated. In Milan, in Berlin, in Beijing, in Taipei. We want to matter, so we design scalable technology, machines, softwares, utilizing the material and carbon footprint that we have already created. We research new ways to reuse trash, localized collection for turning waste into new products. To date, our lab has innovated over 1,200 new materials made from trash to unlock the upcycling potential of everyday waste, available in our cloud material database. We want to matter by giving our future generation hope. Please join us in this trash revolution against our own selfish inertia. Let's stop talking about the problem, take responsibility of our own action, and start doing. Because we all matter.
Just so quickly, we are all clear. Recycling is fake and unreal and full of shit. Yeah, it is full of shit to begin with. Now, maybe I should also make that in Chinese too. Yeah, okay. 其实台湾大部分回收的材料，其实大概大家都知道，没有真正的被利用。OK， 其实就像不管是像玻璃，也许有春池玻璃，但是它毕竟还是少量的被高阶利用，真正的还是不见了。OK， 塑料更是。OK， 其实我们跟很多的回收商更是。那我们大部分在讲的回收 ，what we talking about recycling or whatever you call in Europe now call waste to energy recycling. It's just putting molecule in a different form. Okay, to us. Okay, and Taiwan is an expert in burning trash because 台湾有全世界密度最高的incinerator， 有27座好像 ，right? We have 27 incineration plant. Okay, so I have to say, even Taiwan boosts its 60% post-consumer recycling rate. It's actually fake, and we actually did a data for the last 15 years. Where did most of our recycled material went? 到底这些回收材料跑去哪 Okay, actually, most of it, only 2 to 5% is actually being collected to be used, potentially to be used, or sorted properly to be used. Most of that go to heat recycling or landfill, or ship it to China, Malaysia, Thailand, and dispose somewhere. Okay, so that's actually what the recycling we are talking about is doing. So when the Europeans talk about circular economy, I also find it very funny because a lot of that material actually was not accounted for because all they need is a bill of lading from China, from Vietnam, and says recycled material, export it. Wow, I get subsidies, I also get, and that's it. Okay, so that's considered recycled material. So actually the material actually didn't go anywhere. So this is an opportunity. I just want to say this is the truth. You can research all you want, and recently there's a lot of great expose on these issues on BBC, Sky News in Europe, and all over the place. UN even did this. And Ellen MacArthur Foundation did that, is saying that this is how many percentage potentials, trillion-dollar opportunity. To tell you the truth, I don't see it. I know it's trillion-dollar opportunities. Look at us, we're like still around, you know? I shouldn't be standing here talking. I should be having my private yacht and flying private jet somewhere, right? Okay, but no, it's not. This is not the business that we're in because people are presenting as this is the new super industry, but it's not. Like previous speaker mentioned, it's very complex. It's very complex. So how do you solve this very complex problem? Here, let me just explain why it's a very complex problem. It's not being solved. It's because when the collector collects the material, the first thing is they ask is, how do you want to store the material? Because storing material and sorting the material has cost. How do you do it? What is the material? How dry do you want the material? How big you want the actual cutting of the material? Like what size is the piece you want? And then you need a compounding specification. If you want to use the plastic, you want to use the glass, you want to use the aluminum, they want to know what's the aggregate size. That's the first thing. But you have to know the application before you know the aggregate size. And then you have all the forming methods. If you don't have a specification for the forming method, you don't know it's going to a shoe, a jacket, or a watch band, how are you going to know any of the material forming methods? So, okay, so what can designer do? They cannot do anything because they don't know any of this. These are all decided by engineers, business professional, what product to make a lot of times. So what we did is we collected all these roadblocks to create about 1,200 new materials to enable for us to use the material. So this is a material database. It's almost like a travel website, okay? So where you can actually link the material from a certain trash source to potentially into 4 datas, okay? The modulus, the mechanical strength, the impact strength, and elongations, and for fabric, there's also different, you need that data to simulate in any type of new engineering software today. You need that, okay? So 不管是 SolidWorks, anyways, there's all kinds of, doesn't matter, it's industrial design for SolidWorks. In order for you to use new material, you need all this data to actually just know whether this is working or not on the most basic level. So this is actually designed for you to power that. So then you can actually say, okay, I can use this to turn into that. And this is, by the way, this is our business model for 10 years, actually. We've been around for 15 years. Consumer into recycler. That's the ultimate dream that we have. How do you make consumer into the recycler? So there's no transportation, there's no contaminations, and everything is circular. So in the whole process, we started from the blue side, which is what most of a design professional can start by influencing on tooling, influencing on smart design, trying to have single material, using no glue, small quantity injection, so it's customizable from that side. And we went all the way around in the last 15 years, all the way now to recycle traceability of a material, okay? So fast identification, trade-back system, all the way to what we call local decentralized infrastructure for recycling without creating secondary pollution. We call it the Trashpresso project. I will show you that. And the dotted line is we've been working with all these brands. Welcome to search in Google. Any one of these initiatives by these company, if you research, behind it should be us. Okay. And we've been around for a while. So I just want to show you what that little machine is doing. And we are actually deploying across the world for this type of decentralized recycling solutions.
4 years ago, MiniWiz started a journey to create the first mobile recycling line, the Trashpresso. Using press machines, shredders, ovens, and other industrial equipment, Trashpresso is able to recycle trash anywhere. While TP1 traveled around the world, MiniWiz developed a new generation of Trashpresso, a modular system with a smaller footprint for easier transportation and higher energy efficiency. With a new system of heat induction presses and specific molds for different parts, the process has become faster and more efficient. The new Trashpresso complements Robin, MiniWiz's smart trash collection system. We will track every single piece of your trash from the moment you throw it away till the time we put it back in the game. Furthermore, new Trashpresso can be upgraded with a robot arm that will do the dirty job. Technology, engineering, design.
All right, so that's not so important, but what we did is we started this whole experiment this April in Singapore for 2 days in the middle of MRT stops. Okay, and of course, you know Singaporeans are quite annoying with safeties, and I know all that stuff. So the whole idea is, can we do trash transformation in the middle of an MRT stop with a formaldehyde measuring device and a VOC measuring device to see whether there is toxicity in the transformation process. Okay, so people can get close to a machine. We have to work with a local designer to be able to make a mold, a tiles, okay, on site, all within 5 minutes. So of course, the whole process is now from trash all the way to final product within, right now it's actually 2.5 minutes. Yeah, so like 2.5 minutes. So the machine can take around 500 kgs a week. If you think 500 kg a week is very little, it is very little on the industrial level. But on the community level, 500 kg is plenty to take up a certain shopping mall's trash. Okay, so what we did is we then start doing a summer trials, okay, of this type of system in no other than Porto, Sardinia. Do you guys know Porto? We started a shop called The Exchange. Now, basically, you can only go into the shop, you can only donate trash, you turn to a currency, and you can use that currency to buy anything that's in the shop, from classes, workshops, all the way to sunglasses, clothing, like what I'm wearing now. Okay, you can, but they are all made from trash too, okay, of course. So this whole thing is an experiment, okay? And later you will see it goes all the way into not experiment anymore. So from the building material, it's made from the same machine that we ship in there. If you guys know Porto is every summer, this is where the European billionaire gathers with all these fancy yachts, private jets. This is the trillion-dollar business opportunity, right? Okay, so I'm making fun of them, obviously. But so that's why I brought the machine there. And I want to see whether the highest level of consciousness in terms of intellectual understanding of sustainability is willing to play and gamify the whole recycling with me, okay? Some Asian boy, okay? And this is what we did, okay? And I have to say, it's so packed with trash, starting with the kids trying to come in to get points, okay? All the way to they bring their parents and all the packaging material from the yacht, okay, to donate into that trash bin. You can see it's always overflow, okay? The amount of, and this is what happened every hour, like 50 people in the shop every day. we almost died because we didn't know there could be that many people in Portacevo. We thought it's like a secluded experiment. And because of this experiment, we had to shut down our robotic arm almost every time because there's too many people want to get close to see the whole process of recycling, okay? But what's interesting is you say, how can melting plastic in front of people be good for the environment? No? We are not melting plastic. We are forging plastic. That is the process. You soften the plastic. Okay, that's why AI become very important. What type of material, the softening temperature, and what type of data, then I input it into the system, and I softening it, and I put lots of pressure in it. It's like a forging machine combined with a little oven, basically. So that is what the process is. That's why it doesn't actually recontaminate the whole process. And that's why you can take any type of material. You can take aluminum, you can take paper cup coated with plastic, you can take the tolerance for different type of material is a lot. So in this project, we work with One Ocean Foundations for beach cleanup. So we take what we collected from the beach, and we turn that also into beautiful products. Mosaic for the shopping mall, bowls, utensils, parts of a chair joints, also for the tables. And I would just want to show you quickly in the behind the scene. The behind the scene is this data, right? What you're feeding in is actually allowing this to scale is through this. And we are learning, right? The more designer we work with, the more material we collected, the more data is needed, right? And this becomes very interesting for us because this data will actually allow us to become more efficient at creating new products, okay? And yes, this is permanent, already in Far Eastern department store. It's traveling around. This is the first launch. This was in Hsinchu. What Vice Mayor was, Deputy Mayor was just here. This was launched there for a month, but this was not included with a robotic system. Okay, so this is semi-auto manual. It's designed for manual engagement. Okay, it's been operating in Tainan right now. It's also operating in Kaohsiung. It's all the different department stores. So we are collecting the trash from all the food, basically coffee shops, bakeries, all the leftover, and then they donate into the system, and they get a flower pot, okay, on site, designed by a local designer. And of course, it comes with all the education through the daily process. But anyway, so that's a flower pot. Doesn't look half bad. With all kinds of mixed material, and because of the way how you choose the material, you create different color, different textures. You can have waste coffee, waste rice husk, leftover noodle, dry if you can. You can also turn that into products. And of course, then this is starting to be in Shanghai, but this is an event in Shanghai. It's not fully open yet, but in the middle, not yet, but in the middle of Shanghai, in Huaihai, between, you guys know Huaihai, it's like the 5th Avenue of Shanghai. You will see a whole department store. It's also made with that material, made with that method of make. And also the machine and the collection system is permanently going to be in Shanghai. So I know a lot of people say, so what are you going to do with this? How are you going to scale this? For us, I think this is the beginning. We are actually making the machine cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Okay, so the potential scalability is there. The other thing is we're making the power consumption smaller and smaller and smaller. Right now, the power consumption, we went from 10.5 kilowatt hour to 3.2 kilowatt hour. So it's just going to get better and better, right? We are adding microwave inductions, microwave system to softening the temperature even quicker, okay, to reduce the power consumptions, okay, and we are also linking it into a 3D metal printer, okay, so then designer can feed in the design right away, make a mold, and press into high quality product ASAP, okay, within 2.5 minutes. So that's, and just show you that some of these activities, I think for us is also very interesting is because we did a river cleanup in the middle of the Himalayas with Jackie Chan. This is what we do with
Join Jackie Chan, international superstar, and Arthur Huang, Nat Geo's emerging explorer and structural engineer. Together, they'll embark on a new adventure full of eco-friendly innovations and cutting-edge green technology. Jackie Chan's Green Heroes, Wednesday night at 10 on National Geographic.
So we went there to build schools with the trash we collected. And I know a lot of people might think Europeans are not responsible for Tibetans' trash, but they are, because there's plenty of Kinder eggs in Tibet, 4,500 meters. That is one of a gift that parents buy for their kids if they do well at school. There's plenty of denim water bottles, even though they have the best water. Very funny, right? But you gotta know, this consumption culture is started by all of us, and that pollution is way beyond what we can imagine, and it's actually a consumption culture. So we see the root of circular economy as changing consumption culture, but how do you gamify it on the city level? So while we are working with Shanghai government, so we are working with the government in this project, so we're using trash to create schools, to create infrastructures, public works, okay? We're working with Sardinian government on Porto to turn that into public mosaic with the trash that's collected, right? So there is a public and private engagement. Unfortunately, wow, it's always really hard to find public funding allocations, because one of the biggest issue is there's no comparable technology out there in the market, okay? And of course, you always need, what, 1, 2, 3, it's like, this is another issue, right? So hopefully in the future, this can scale a lot more efficiently, but we are still looking for partners and business ideas to be able to scale this. And most of this technology is already out there, okay? It's already out there. We just combining that into a different format, okay? And thank you so much for listening. That's it.
Thank you so much to Mr. Arthur Huang. Thank you so much for sharing with us the story of Miniwitz. Thank you. 我们再次谢谢小智研发黄千智创办人的分享哦。And we move on to the next talk. And this next talk will be brought to you by Ms. Shawn White, Head of Research and Insight Design Council from the UK. 那接下来呢，我们邀请到下面一位讲者是英国设计委员会研究洞见负责人 Ms. Shawn White。掌声欢迎。
Hello, and it's great to be here in Taipei today. As mentioned, my name is Shawn White, and I'm Head of Research and Insight at the UK Design Council. Just to kind of start with a little bit about the Design Council, in case you haven't heard about us, we were established in 1944, originally within government as the Council of Industrial Design. And we had a remit and an effort to think about how, in the context of the end of the Second World War, how could we promote by all practical means the improvement of design in the products of British industry. So created at a time when actually there was a need to think about the UK's future in terms of its economic and social challenges. And what the government did at that time was to put its focus and its efforts and its trust in design. And where are we here now today? Well, 75 years later, we're still doing that. We celebrated our birthday last year on the 19th of December, and now we're rebranded as the Design Council. And as well as thinking about the kind of products and the industry and the manufacturing aspects of design, we're also very much focused on the social difference that design can make. And that's in the idea of the fact that we believe that that design has a role in making life better. And we think about the idea of making life better by design. And that's through the idea of that we believe in design in all its forms has the possibility to make sure that we have better places, better products, better processes. And if we do that, we think there's going to be better performance for the society as at large, both in terms of the economics, but also in terms of the social difference it can make to the citizens of the UK. So what do we do as an organisation? We do 3 key things. So first of all, we provide strategic advice. So we're the UK's government's advisor on design. So we play a role advising them. but we also work with major infrastructure providers across the UK. So we work with our rail companies, we work with our highways agencies, with our home building agencies, to advise them on how they can use design to meet their challenges and the challenges of the future. We have a wide stream of programs of work. This is where we work directly either with businesses or with public sector to get them using design and to understand actually the benefits of that. And through working directly with those organizations, we're able to gather insight and demonstrations of how design can make a difference. And that's where evidence and insight comes in. So part of our role is to grow the evidence-based design. And that's the bit in which I work, in thinking about the research base behind the role that design can play in the UK and beyond. Now, as an organisation, in terms of our programmes and our remit of work, we look at a whole range of different types of design. But we have specialities within public service design, architecture in the built environment, and also business innovation. And increasingly, where we're interested is the role that these three types of design can play together. So how can we integrate them and think about a multidisciplinary offer? And that's with a focus on, we think that when these types of disciplines come together, we can make better places. We're focused as an organisation on national design issues, and we think about it across the whole economy. So sometimes when people think about design, they just think about the aesthetic nature of design, whereas what we're interested in is what role can design play right across the economy, not just within creative industries, but within banking, within aerospace, within engineering. What difference can it make? And why are we interested in that? Well, people. People are at the heart of why we're interested in making sure that design makes a difference. And that might be for policymakers, it might be for public sector, private sector, but also designers themselves. And all of this work is underpinned by our understanding of design. So we have a range of tools and methods and approaches about how we think of design, taken from a 75-year-old history. And all of this is underpinned by the Double Diamond, which is our way of communicating what design is and its value. So I'm here today to share a little bit of what we've learnt about what design is. And I'm going to focus in on design skills and share some of our learning and thinking about what are design skills and why are they so important. I'm going to probably focus mostly on the UK and use it as a case study to explain about what role design skills would play within the UK context. And because I'm here amongst friends, I'm also going to share some of our lessons learnt and some of our challenges. And maybe we'll be able to find some similarity between our experience and I guess some of the challenges that we're sharing both here in Taiwan, but also globally from thinking about the other international partners that you've heard today. So to start, and because it's probably a good idea to start with, actually, what do I mean when I keep saying design? When we think about design at the Design Council, we think about it being both a mindset and a skill set. So quite often a traditional perspective of design might be focusing in on the aesthetic nature of it. What could we practically produce with our hands? Whereas we think about it as both that kind of skill set, that kind of tangible things that you can do, but also an approach, a way of going about it and thinking about how we can make that difference. We think about it being both critical thinking and creativity combined. Idea of, I guess, your left brain and your right brain working together. And it's this combination of thinking about things critically and creatively that can lead us to think about really innovative solutions. And as I said, it's much more than aesthetics. It's a whole range of different types of mechanisms and means of going about things. We express this sometimes as thinking about head, heart, and hand. And to unpack that a little bit, so when you're thinking about your head, you're thinking problem solving. So it's that capacity to have a vision about where you want to get to and the capacity to see through to that idea and to visualize something that might not always be particularly tangible. It's to think ahead and look at the future. And it's then to take those kind of practical and technical skills and achieve and actually create something with that vision in mind. So it's your heart, it's focusing on people, making sure that actually whatever you do, you're focusing on those needs of the people that you are thinking of. But then it's also those practical skills as well. So what tangibly can you do with your hands through the work that you do to reach that vision? And so this kind of idea of design is very much kind of mindset, but also a whole range of different skills that we can start to talk about to do with design, that both are about the way we think, the way that we do work, but also what we kind of then practically produce. And as Pivy mentioned earlier, these are types of skills that are really, really important in the future. And you've seen this earlier. So, for example, the World Economic Forum produced this piece of work looking at what are the skills that we're going to need for the future. And as we've seen, the idea of creativity, complex problem solving, these are the types of skills that are going to become increasingly important both now, but also as we start to tackle major challenges in the future. And that these are the types of skills that we see absolutely explicitly used within design processes. They're particularly important given, I guess, also the changing nature of work. So as we've just heard, we are increasingly using new forms of technology, AI, and that means that in the future there are certain things that actually maybe we won't be doing in our work anymore. I guess the phrase, or the idea of automation, which can both create opportunities, but I guess also kind of understandable challenges when we think about what a workforce is going to look like in the future. What we know about these types of skills, things like creativity, is that those types of thinking are much harder to automate. So there are real implications for thinking about the role that design skills can have in thinking about the future of the workforce. What I've shared so far, I guess, is our thinking about design. But what we've done at the Design Council is tried to back that up with hard evidence. A couple of years ago, we produced a report, a piece of research called Designing a Future Economy. And what that aimed to do was to understand what are the specific skills that are associated with designers' roles. And by looking at combining UK data and US data, what we were able to do was to map what those skills are, what are their relative intensity within particular types of roles, and what are their importance. And by doing that, we were able to start to gather a really clear understanding of, well, what are the skills we're kind of seeing within designer roles, and how can we therefore understand where those skills are not just playing a role within designers' roles, but outside in other people that might be using similar techniques as designers. And what we were able to isolate were 13 key skills that across a range of design disciplines were present in these roles. And they combine cognitive skills, so for example, thinking creatively, being visual, with technical skills, so thinking about, for example, analysis skills, as well as what skills might be occupation specific. So for example, building and construction, understandably, would be very important when thinking about the architecture and the built environment. Now, by isolating these types of skills, we can start to understand their value and actually look at them against other types of metrics. And when we look at that, we can see these types of skills are incredibly valuable. So, for example, this is looking at the UK here. When we look at the value of design skills, we know that actually design skills were worth 209 billion in the UK annually. And actually, these types of skills are growing, the value of them is growing faster than the rate of the rest of the UK economy. So an incredibly impressive figure in terms of understanding the pound-for-pound return of actually of design skills. Secondly, we're also interested in the idea of productivity. So again, when looking at designers and those that are using design skills, we can start to look at and understand that actually, compared to the average worker, those using design skills tend to be £10 more productive per hour, a 27% increase in productivity on average. And in the context of how we think about increasingly being innovative within industries, this is really, really important. Finally, and it was great to see this mentioned earlier, within the UK, 2.5 million people use design skills in their day-to-day work. And that's both designers, but also those that are using similar types of skills like problem solving, creativity within their work. And that's a huge figure and I guess an impact across our economy. What's particularly interesting about this is the fact that there is this close relationship between design and innovation, as mentioned earlier. And what we can see is for these people that are using design skills in their work, 43% of them tend to be now working within roles that are generating new ideas and products and services. And that compares with 6% of workers more generally across the UK. So what we can start to see here is this link between the value of design skills, how they increase productivity, and how they're intensely linked to innovation. So a compelling case for design, and one that is very important given the context that we're in when facing as the UK, but also globally, new challenges, the changing nature of work, where we have to think about things differently. However, this doesn't just happen on its own. And while we can see increasingly a demand for design and design skills, it does require that trust, as we've talked about before, to put our trust in design skills. It also requires thinking about the future. If we're seeing an increased demand in design, how do we make sure those skills are present in our economy, in our future generations, to make sure that we're able to meet that demand? One of the things that's so exciting about being here today in Taiwan and having had the conversations we've had over the last couple of days is seeing actually how much investment is being put into design here. I'm going to share some of, I guess, the challenges that we think we might face within the UK, given this increased demand. But how do we protect that pipeline and that the future of design within our country? So for us, we've achieved a real difference from having design skills within our economy. But we know we need to protect that. So one of the things that we aware of is how do we think about investing in research and development. So there's this close relationship between where you invest in research and development and how you increase design and innovation. And at the moment, while we do quite a lot as a UK in terms of R&D, we're actually behind others in terms of what percentage we invest in that as a nation. And that's something we need to think about. So our government, for example, has a target now of 2.4% that we want to reach. And that's because we think that actually by increasing R&D, we're likely to be able to make sure that we are still competitive and we are still having an impact as a nation. Equally, thinking about things like investing in design and technology. So I've already mentioned the fact that designers tend to be more productive on average than an average worker. Again, as we start to move into new technologies, new forms of business, how can we start to integrate these types of design skills in what we do? And particularly useful when we're thinking about industry and how that's changing. So we have evidence that shows that actually when businesses use design, they tend to be more sustainable, they tend to achieve better growth, they tend to achieve better exports. But how can we make sure that actually businesses are able to get to these types of skills so that they can use them within their businesses? And then finally, and I've mentioned this before, in terms of when we think about this changing landscape of business and making sure that actually if there is going to be further automation or we are going to make the most of technology, how can we make sure that we are equipping people with the types of skills that mean that they will be able to work in future workforces? And that creativity there plays a really vital role. So for us as the UK, we have seen the advantage of design, but we know we can't we can't stop investing and making sure that actually we're protecting that tradition and that pipeline of design. The reason why I mention this is because even though we achieve real value out of design skills, actually because there are gaps in the market around particular skills, actually we're not necessarily making the most of what otherwise we could have. So when we look at that potential shortfall, we can see that actually that's already having an impact on our economy. So we think that the lack of design skills costs the UK economy $5.9 billion per year. And that's of real interest to us because it's like, well, what could we do about that? What are the different places within that pipeline and that future of design where there are issues that we could potentially do something about to make sure actually we're not going to lose that $5.9 billion and we're in the best position that we can be going into the future. And one of the things that we're interested in particular is around, I guess, thinking about the younger generation and thinking about, are young people seeing design as an option? Are they going into design? Are they receiving that form of education? And what this chart shows is one aspect of that pipeline. So it looks at, within the UK, usually at about the age of 16, students take what's called their GCSEs. And that's an exam that's taken at the end of a certain period of their school. And what we're seeing increasingly is, since 2000, far less students are taking design and technology. So the specific course that can be associated with that type of practice. So it's gone from being over 400,000 down to being less than 100,000 in 2019. And that's one route into design, but we're also seeing decreases in the number of design and technology units within schools. We're seeing less people go into postgraduate qualifications in terms of arts and creative courses. And so we're starting to see, I guess, a drying up of that initial pipeline. And we want to understand why. we know that it's really important to make sure that we have these creative skills. And actually, there's been a recent review looking at what could be done about post-18, under-18 education within the UK. And a report was produced. And what this starts to show is basically a word analysis that says, well, what keys, given this focus and this desire to understand what should education look like, what are the types of things that are particularly being understood and promoted as important within this? And what comes across within this kind of data is that actually, despite what I've just mentioned about how important the softer side of skills and the design skills are to the future economy, actually aren't really being mentioned in this type of analysis. So soft skills design aren't actually being acknowledged within this type of work. And that causes us a bit of concern. Equally, as well as, I guess, this slight narrowing of opportunity around potentially going into design, there are other factors as well. So we know that while design makes a real difference to the UK economy, it generates 85.2 billion in gross value added every year. That equality and that opportunity isn't always spread out. So we do see regional differences in the use of design. It's much more concentrated in London and South East. And also, we do see the fact that actually we have differences in who actually goes into design. So, for example, the design workforce is 78% male. So we're just interested in this pipeline because we think it's really important to the UK economy, but it's also important in making sure that actually, going back to some of the comments we made earlier, how do we make sure that access to that opportunity in that future is for everybody? So what are some of the things that we think could be done and which might be relevant here as well? So I guess first of all, there's this pipeline issue and how we think about it across from school through to work. So there's something here about, within schools, how do we make sure that people and young people are excited about design and they see it as an option for them? Secondly, and not to go back to parents too much, as already been mentioned by Anna, what's the role for parents to actually encourage their children to go into design and to understand it, to see it as an option, and to encourage them to do it, given the fact that we know that actually that could play a real difference in the future workforce? And then finally, thinking about business, which is that we see skills gap not only at the point of entry into industry, but also beyond that. And given that, for example, in the UK, we think that probably there's going to end up being, you'd end up as a person having 3 careers in your lifetime. What is the role for the workforce to think about embedding and training people up in these design skills, given how productive and important they are? And I guess within this, we particularly emphasize the importance of things like science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We think that there's a role for design within there, both within schooling, but also within what the workforce values. So to end, I guess what I hope I've got across is that design is both a mindset and a skill set. And it's something that's really important, both for the challenges that we face now, to our current economies, but also to thinking about our future challenges. And it's something that can really make a difference to what we do. And it's both, we think about it in terms of both the head, heart, and hand skills. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Ms. Shawn White from the Design Council, the UK. 非常谢谢我们来自于英国的讲者哦。Thank you so much for the very informative talk and let us know what's happening right now in the UK, and there's a lot definitely for us to learn. 非常谢谢我们的讲者跟我们分享英国的经验哦，也有很多值得台湾借鉴的地方。那接下来呢，就是我们最后的综合论坛的时间。一样，我们再次提醒各位贵宾呢，都可以利用我们的线上平台留下您的问题，我们的主持人呢会协助帮您提问哦。Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we now move on to the final panel discussion of the day, and for that we'd like to invite our moderator and also panel speakers to join us on the stage. 我们要首先有请我们最后一场次的综合论坛的主持人，天下杂志吴迎春社长，掌声欢迎。Our moderator is the president of Commonwealth Magazine, Yingchun Wu, and let's also welcome our panel speakers, including Mr. Arthur Huang, founder of Miniwiz 小智研发，黄千智创办人 Jesse Grimes, Vice President of the Service Design Network 全球服务设计网络副总裁 Jax Yeo, Deputy Executive Director of Design Singapore Council 新加坡设计委员会副执行长 and Shawn White from the Design Council 以及英国设计委员会的 Shawn White. Okay, over to our moderator, Ms. Wu.
谢谢。 Well, this session is about design and business innovation. The before one is about public policy and design. Anyway, thank you all for coming to this forum, which will define and design Taiwan's business development in the future. The reason for my conviction is that I seldom see the presence of people from IDB, Lin Zuzang, for instance, at design conferences in Taiwan. The Industrial Development Bureau used to look after only the manufacturers or industrial plants when I was a young reporter. Anyway, so this is definitely a transformation, trust me. And I don't know what magic Chairman Zhang Jiyi have done to Zhenghua Juizang, but it is certainly a work in process. Therefore, I'm especially happy that we can have so many policy makers on design coming from different countries around the world. And we've heard Sean and from British Design Council and Arthur from business earlier. Now there are two other design experts who are new on stage, and one from Amsterdam and one from Singapore. So allow me to start this discussion session with the new ones on stage. So, well, distance makes sense. So the first, let me introduce Jess Grimes, Vice President of Service Design Network from Netherlands. Yes, so Jess, tell us how design is changing the business landscape in Netherlands.
So I'm indeed based in the Netherlands, and our organization, the Service Design Network, is international, so I think I can give a bit of a perspective on both sides. Service design is indeed a new discipline. We've heard it touched on in the talks earlier today. It's also here present in Taiwan and Taipei and growing in its recognition. And I think it's really come to the forefront in the last decade or 15 years because we're moving away from a life where we're using only products to one where we're using services, and our expectations of customer experience mean that there needs to be some designers involved in that process. So over time, starting in Western Europe and the UK, service design has grown in recognition, and it might have been 10 years ago you would have struggled to find people with the service designer title outside these parts of the world, except in small pockets. But what we see more and more is people that are really calling themselves service designers, doing the work of service designers around the world. So that's quite positive.
Thank you. And our next guest is Jack Yao, Executive Director of Design Singapore Council. Jack, share with us how design is changing Singapore right now.
So in Singapore, I think you have heard the many speakers talking about design, and design has gone beyond just merely looking good. It's about providing good experience to your end customers. So that's where Singapore is moving to. A very tangible example would be Singapore Changi Airport, right? It's an airport that sees, well, millions of passengers coming through every year, probably the 6th busiest in the world. And the airport team itself, one of the biggest impetus that they have is to make that traveling experience delightful, right? And as part of that, I think that's where all the different aspects of the workflow, they work with designers as well as service designers in order to make sure that the environment as well as the service they provide in the airport is making the travelers happy. I mean, travelers are probably the most grumpy lot when it comes to arriving on a red-eye flight in the morning and then still have to make another trip further down, which Jesse is going to fly 12 hours after this. So that's important to keep them happy. And what better way to keep them happy than to make sure that the process itself is efficient. But actually beyond that, it is also about how to make the environment comfortable. At the same time, if they can achieve that by also going green, that means making green delightful as well, that's all the more better, right? Which is why the latest addition to Singapore Changi Airport, the Jewel, actually uses a lot of renewable energy from tactics like passive cooling. So that's where there's a lot of greenery in it, bring green into the indoors, a lot of vertical walls, as well as because you have a lot of green, you need to water the plants, right? So it's about also how do you make use of rainwater collection. And you're collecting rainwater. It'd be fantastic if you can make it in the spectacle. That's why you have the big waterfall in the middle. So I think all those strategies are being tied together by the team and working with the designers. So that's how we like to see Singapore companies and organizations using design.
I've seen some questions already. Some of them are about sustainable design, which towards Arthur, but later I'll ask the question. But before that, they're concerned about skills. I'm especially intrigued by Sean's presentation, talking about there are already 2.5 million people using design skills in their daily lives in the UK. Can you be more specific about what is design skill are we talking about? Analytic capability or soft skills or technology or science? What are you talking about when you say 2.5 million people are using their design skills? What kind of skill and what kind of design skill are augmented from your design council to help more people were equipped with these kind of design skill?
Great question. So it's the types of skills that I showed up on the screen in terms of those top 13. So it is things like thinking creatively, it is about conducting analysis, it's thinking about construction, building. So it's a wide range of different skills that we can start to see within those roles, be they cognitive skills, technical skills, or occupational skills. In terms of what we're doing to think about how can we grow that in the future, I guess first of all it is about thinking how do we continue to make the case for these types of skills and so show what difference they are making to the economy but also to society. And that is about making sure that where there are, I guess, policy decisions to be taken that protect these types of skill development, be that within our schools, within our workforces, we're making the case for that difference. But it's also for us is there is something about this difference between understanding and valuing design, so being open to design and seeing it as an option to be used. And I guess those that then actually go on and have those types of design skills that train up, that become a designer. And I guess for us in thinking about the future, it's not just only how do we think about building design skills, it's how do we build design awareness, design literacy. For all you those today who think, well, actually, design's really interesting and maybe it's something I might think about in my job, in my business. That's, I guess, what we're interested in thinking about for the future.
The reason I ask this is because there's so many graduates from Taiwan, from design school in Taiwan already, and they are concerned about their jobs. Is there anything that you would like to add? How is design graduates in England doing? Are they getting good jobs?
I think it's this chair means you get the tough questions. So yes, they are. So I mean, we are seeing the fact that where designers typically are more productive, they do have those greater skills. One of the things that we are aware of is that not everyone that takes a design education actually goes into design, and that's something that actually is a shame and something we'd like to see more of. But what we understand in the UK is that design is a growth area. More and more designers are being employed within different industries. So for example, digital design is a real area of growth within the UK at the moment, and so is service design. So I guess for graduates here today, if you have a training in graphic, in fashion, etc., I guess how you see those core skills and that mindset and that understanding of taking that step backwards, really understanding the problem before you think about a solution. That mindset can be applied not just within your own industry, but to other industries. And we've heard earlier about the difference that design can make within the public sector, for example. So I guess my advice to design graduates is think openly about what industries you find yourself in, because that core understanding and that skill is really transferable.
Thank you. My next set of questions will be sustainable design because I'm totally overwhelmed by Arthur's presentation. So there are several questions I would like to ask you about. They're just great creative design that you show. But one thing, because I'm from Business Magazine, so cost is my major concern for business usually. So my personal experience says when I want to buy things made of recycled materials, they are usually cost twice, thrice, or 10 times more expensive. So how do you keep the cost enough fair enough for consumers or customers? You have customers to even look at the products, to consider that. Or for instance, the trash espresso, I'm so overtaken by that, but any numbers on that? How much would it cost to handle 1 kilogram of trash, for instance? You don't have to tell me. But anyway, it's just that it's coming to my mind. How should we look at the costing right now? It's a fantastic project.
So if you think about cost in that sense, then by default, it's already not called upcycling, right? By default, that's just industrial process. Right. So when you're going to straight up industrial process, then what is the value of design that's providing? Then, okay, then we shouldn't be talking anymore. Because, for example, today, a same piece of sofa has different price. Right. Okay, a same piece of clothing has also different price. A H&M T-shirt has a very different price from a streetwear T-shirt, even though it's made from the same material. Yeah. So, and of course, how do you determine the price? There's a price cost to the environment. So we are always for all kinds of carbon analysis because we do ISO 14001, we do Gabi analysis to get to the bottom of embedded carbon footprint. So if you don't consider the embedded carbon footprint, everything you buy, you will think is too expensive because you're used to this screw up current capitalistic system of pricing. So everything, again, if you don't care about sustainability, okay, pretty much everything costs expensive, okay. Another thing is if you don't care about design, everything's expensive, right? If you cannot evaluate what is a good design and what's not a good design, everything is expensive, period, okay. And the only way we can get away from that in Asia is by dipping ourselves in European design community. So to Singaporeans, we're from Milan, okay. Singaporean would not pay extra for a Taiwan design, just so you know that. But they will pay more.
They will?
Yeah, for a Dutch design, for a British design, and for a Japanese design. Oh. Okay, well, I mean, Jack can testify that, right?
Maybe I add one more thing. We probably wouldn't not pay more for a Singaporean design.
Exactly. Yeah. You see, this is this is what I mean by cultural superiority. Right. Okay, and the cultural superiority, you have to recognize that is years of culminated advantages that you've been accumulating. I'm not trying to change that. Okay, because you gotta know it takes generation to change that. Even us, Asian, living in Asia, I mean, for example, will you buy an Indonesian-made machine? Indonesian-made machine. There's no offense to Indonesian. I'm sure they can make better machines, probably. But Indonesian-made machines or German-made machines, which one will you pay more if it does the exact same thing? Okay, you see, this is the same problem. So we in Taiwan are very interesting because we're stuck in the middle. We're either not expensive or not cheap. Okay, we're stuck. Okay, so for us to be able to work with a designer, yeah, I love to work with Taiwanese designer, but unfortunately, in order for me to get into the Chinese market, if I work with a Taiwanese designer, by default, I'm undersold, right? So I have lower value. If I work with an Italian designer, I can higher sell. Yeah? Okay. So that's a value difference. The last thing I want to specify on the value of the service or the technology is, like I mentioned, the values through design and culture, right? Okay. The other one, I think, is about the pure intensity of how you measure the impact. And I think on the design community, we need to come together and figure out how to measure impact on a very financial level or any level, to be able to say, dude, you cannot talk to me about this because you're not even measuring that. I mean, right now, this is missing. European has been talking about carbon trade for a long time. China has been talking about that for a long time. Singapore has been talking about that for a long time, except there's no consensus, right? So when there's no consensus, there are no evaluations, and there's no value can be put on the dollar amount.
And there's someone who's very interested in your, in the garment business. How do you use the recycled garments to do your show you talked about in Tokyo or what?
I make Tokyo, Milan, but I mean we have a set of machines that takes recycled fiber. We directly turn them into a non-woven. It's all portable machines, like the size of like these 4 chairs, and then we ultrasonic, supersonic. Stitch them together again so they become reinforced. Okay, we did that with Eileen Fisher. Right now we've helped them to build a machine in New York. And so if you see Eileen program, it's an American brand that does that. So I mean, that is already reality. It's a product you can buy. So that's one set of machineries.
Thank you. Question to Jess. What kind of sustainable solution are you're experimenting now in Amsterdam or elsewhere in Netherlands? Because we learn a lot from you. Sure.
So, actually, I've got 2 things at the moment on the sustainability topic. One of my current clients is actually in the fertilizer business, in the agriculture business, and they actually are concerned about sustainability. I'm living and working in Brazil and dealing with the farming industry there as part of this multinational company, and they are concerned about sustainability because through good fertilization practice, the productivity of farmland in Brazil can be doubled, which is really a significant number. And they've turned to me as a service designer to help with the systems they're using in applying and advising on the dosage of fertilizer, because technology can add a lot to an industry which at the moment in large parts of Brazil is not really very advanced. And secondly, about a year ago, I met some people from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and also it struck me that as a service designer, I should see what role do we have in the circular economy. As I got into it, I realized that a lot of the expertise is material science and technical things and tangible things, which is not our area of expertise as service designers. But what we can do is take the business design aspect. We can look at the systems that are necessary to carry out circular design work, understand better the users, who they are. For example, if you are willing to join a service where you're renting clothes, what psychological aspects do you need to accept that you're not buying brand new clothing that never has been worn by anyone else? How can we design the experience to make that more acceptable? What are the business models underlying circular economy concepts? So what I realized is there's maybe not so much in the technical and material side, but as service designers, we're very capable of looking at these complex systems and figuring out what the services are that people would interact with.
Jax, any case to share in Singapore, sustainable?
So I mentioned just now, renewable energy is something that Singapore is looking at. So from solar to, I suppose, even possibly sea waves, those are things that are being explored. And then when it comes to trash, I think like Taiwan, there are 2 ways that we deal with trash. One is incinerate. So we do have an incinerator in Singapore. But the other one is landfill. What is, I suppose, unique to us is that our landfill is on the artificially created island of Singapore. Okay, so the island is actually growing taller and higher. And one day it might become a mountain. So that's our worry, okay? Because when it becomes a mountain, the water around it will be contaminated, and the water, we are surrounded by water, it will come back to us eventually. So which is why the government is actually putting a lot of initiative incentive to actually reduce use of I suppose, non-renewable materials. It's a campaign that we have to launch, but at the moment it's also about educating educating everybody actually. How do you reduce, how do you reuse, and how do you recycle, upcycle? And you need to understand some of these technical terms behind, which is why it's a very extended effort to really help people understand. Not just tell them to do it, but tell them how and why, yeah.
Thank you. We're running out of time, actually. So one last thing, conclusion, 1 minute, about what do you think it's worthwhile for the audience, for takeaways. Please, starting from Arthur, anything you would like to share? 1 minute.
Stop buying things. Our economy crashed.
Including your things?
Yeah, including my thing.
Oh.
But you technically...
They produce very good glasses.
Yeah,
anyway,
but anyways, so everything I'm wearing is what we produce, yeah? So, but the problem is we try not to buy new things. If you want to buy new things to satisfy your selfish inertia, please buy old things. That's all.
Second hand.
I think as a takeaway, this is the second visit I've had to Taipei, and I've been in the elite in the bookstore above us, and I'm fascinated and really impressed by the the product design that comes out of Taiwan. I would encourage people to also look at service design. I'm here to represent this young industry that I think has a lot of potential for Taiwan itself, and I'd invite you to learn more about what we are, the global community, and also the local chapter of the SDN here. So just a plea for a better understanding here of service design.
Thank you, Jax.
So actually this was mentioned by Arthur just now. I think for designers and for many organizations to do better, I think we need to know a way of how to measure, right, the impact and the value. I think that's something that has been the ongoing conversation.
Thank you. Impact. Sean?
I guess what's come across from today's conversations is just how much excitement there can be about design and the role that it can play in public, private practice. So I hope it really starts to continue to embed here in Taiwan, and I look forward to hopefully coming back in a couple of years and seeing what changes, what difference that's made.
Thank you, really, and thank you. There were a lot of very good questions here. I'm sorry, because some of them are very long, so it's hard for me to translate. Anyway, and thank you all for your answers. Taiwan's industry needs transformation. This is our consensus, I believe so. And we are all looking at all directions, striving to get new models of development. What we've seen today is one big step away from where we were before, but to be very honest, I believe there are still a lot of worries in our mind. When I was preparing for this afternoon, I thought about Einstein. I like especially one quote from him, which is, "A person who never made a mistake never tried anything new." And pretty much what Perry have just said, take risk and give it a try. So let us thank again speakers from around the world today who gave us some new chances to make mistake, quote unquote. Thank you all and hope you have a good afternoon. 谢谢.
Thank you to our moderator and speakers. Would you please stand up and let's have a photo on the stage? 我们请我们的主持人以及我们的讲师呢在舞台上一起合照。Ladies and gentlemen, our forum has come to an end today. We would like to thank all of our speakers for their valuable input, and also we will also like to say to our interpreters, great job. Thank you so much. Thank you. And of course, we would like to thank you all for your participation. 我们再次谢谢各位贵宾今天的莅临。那我们的论坛呢就到此告一段落。我们非常谢谢我们的讲师，也非常谢谢我们的口译老师，也非常谢谢各位贵宾的参与。再次谢谢大家，也祝福大家呢有个美好的一天。谢谢。Thank you once again and have a great evening, everybody. Thank you.